week you made a full commitment to supporting Ukraine sovereignty. The same week you made an argument for Ireland to cede sovereignty to the European Union in terms of the EU Migration Pact. Now, sovereignty is no small thing. It means that the people of this country can self-determine the laws that govern us. It means that they can influence the elected representatives and hold those elected representatives to account. But when decisions are made in Brussels or Berlin, Irish people find it very hard to influence those decisions, and we certainly can't make those hold those decision makers to account. The banking crash was a perfect example of this. The EU forced billions of euros of bailouts on the Irish citizens. It did enormous damage to this country, and we're still recovering in terms of a lost generation of investment in health, housing and infrastructure. The government also signed up to greenhouse gas emission targets. Your government are going to fall well short of those legally binding targets by 2030, and this will cost the state hundreds of millions of euros in fines. And in an answer to a AIM2 parliamentary question, we learned that the EU is fining Ireland tens of millions of euros at the moment. The EU fined Ireland €2.5 billion in relation to wastewater issues, 1.5 million euros in environmental impact assessments, 17 million euros for the Derry Bryan wind farm, 2 million euros for the failure in money laundering directive, 2.5 million euros in failures of the Audiovisual Media Services Directive, and €500,000 in relation to the European Electronic Communications Code. You're currently in court at the moment fighting fines in relation to what's happening in the bogs currently. So your government is looking now to sign up to further EU commitments, and you're already failing on the commitments that you've signed up to and getting fined. Now, the immigration policy of this country so far has been a disaster. You fail consistently to differentiate between those who need help and those who don't. Our AIM2 parliamentary questions have shown that in the last 5 years, 85% of people who received deportation orders never had those deportation orders actioned. We found out that, and I actually have that parliamentary question from you when you were Minister for Justice, so don't shake your head, please. We found out that 5,000 people came through Dublin Airport with no travel documents last year, and we also found out that the government is not asking 75% of asylum seekers how they come into the country at the moment. So now you seek to outsource this immigration policy to the EU, and at the heart of that migration pact is the idea of a mandatory solidarity pool. States must accept immigrants or financially contribute. Numbers and amounts of money are based on population and GDP, and our GDP, as you know, is already artificially elevated in this country. So we're finding it impossible currently to accommodate the migrants who are coming to this country. And given the fact that Ireland is already getting fined all over the place in terms of our commitments that we're not meeting, what I want to know from yourself is how much will it cost this state to sign up to the EU Migration Pact? What is the minimum amount and what is the maximum amount, Taoiseach?
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
Thanks very much, Ciarán Comhairle. I think I can shake my head if I wish to, because I think some of what I heard there, shaking my head, was quite a challenge to just keep my head movement to that, because this idea of we're ceding sovereignty, people in Brussels making decisions. Do you not want to be a member of the European Parliament? Are you not running for election because you want to be there making? Do you know? No, Ciarán Comhairle, but you want to do there? Sorry, let's not go down the kind of Brexit Britain road here of Brussels bad, Ireland good. The reality of the situation is we are members of the European Union. After I finish taking questions here, I will head to Brussels, where I will participate in a decision-making process with other European heads of government. Members of the European Parliament, of which you aspire to be one, will vote democratically on behalf of the people of Europe. Ireland appoints a commissioner to the European Commission. So it's not about outsourcing. This country took a proud decision, I'm not sure what your position on it was, to join the European Union. So that's the first point. The second point is, yes, when you join up to rules and laws, you have to abide by them. And we have court systems in place in relation to that, and we have sanctions if you don't, and that puts, of course, member states, including Ireland, under pressure from time to time. But they're rules and laws we signed up to. Nobody imposed them. Nobody said you must do this. We signed up. We opted in. We chose to do that. So that's very much part of how a rules-based system works. I can't hear you. And then thirdly, when it comes to migration, I just think it is fanciful in the extreme, that this small little island, with thankfully an open border, which we all worked very hard to protect during the Brexit process, can just go it alone when it comes to global and EU migration. The fact that we would continue with the system where we cannot effectively return anybody in many ways in terms of secondary movements, where, as you point out, the deportation system can be challenging at times, to actually sign up to a significant overhaul of the rules that would actually result in a firmer migration system, a fair one but a firmer one, and that Ireland will disproportionately benefit because so many people who come to Ireland seeking refuge come here from what we call secondary movements. So there's absolutely no doubt in my engagements in Europe in the last week, and I doubt there'll be any doubt after my engagements this week, that Ireland stands to be one of the big beneficiaries of the EU Migration Pact, and we'll have plenty of time in this House to debate and discuss that. But let me be clear also in relation to our migration system, and it's not possible, I think you know, to put the costings on these things, because these are dynamic effects. Ireland will benefit in some ways, not in the other, but Ireland will overall be the better. And we'll have an opportunity to tease through in painstaking detail the EU Migration Pact at both the Justice Committee, the floor of Dáil, the floor of Shannon Éireann, and then far from ceding sovereignty, the people's representatives, you, me and everybody else in this House, will vote tá or kneel in relation to whether we want to go it alone or whether we want to work with our European partners in terms of accepting the fact that migration is a massive crisis of our time, a humanitarian crisis and an economic and social challenge, and that we need to work together on this.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Deputy Tóibín.
People with your political background probably said in 1921 that it was fanciful for a small country like ourselves to go it alone and be sovereign back then. But this is the key issue here, Taoiseach, as well. So the point I would say is, Taoiseach, I asked you a question of how much it's going to cost for this state in terms of signing in to the EU Migration Pact. And you have here, in front of the Dáil, stated, you don't know. Now that is an absolute disgraceful answer for a government who's already made a political commitment to sign in to that pact. It is an incredible situation that this is potentially your first blank cheque, Minister, in terms of the cost to this country. And given the fact that we're already paying fines to beat the band as a country for failed commitments that your government can't actually hold up to, it means that we the citizen, is going to have to pay for that in the future. Your government is already incinerating hundreds of millions of euros in terms of waste. 2.25 billion euros in the National Children's Hospital, 300 million euros on Metro North, and a shovel is not even put into the ground. You spent 22 million euros on ventilators that don't work, and you're spending 50 grand a year on a warehouse to hold them at the moment. You have a situation in this country where we have over 100 electric buses in this state.
Time is up.
Who haven't worked a day because somebody forgot to put the planning application in for those electric buses. And now as you as a government are saying to the people of Ireland that you don't know how much it's going to cost. And I think that's an absolute disgrace. And I'll ask you again, how much will it cost the citizens to pay for the EU Migration Pact in the future?
Taoiseach, please.
So in the minute available to me, it's not possible to deal with the electric buses, the Metro, the National Children's Hospital, and waste and a range of other issues that Deputy Tóibín went on an interesting journey around there. But it is absolutely beneath you to slur my political tradition and political party in this House. Because let's look at the party that you spent most of your time in, and let's look at your stance. If it was up to you, we wouldn't. If it was up to you. Yeah, I was 15. If it was up to you, we wouldn't be in the European Union. If it's up to you, we wouldn't be in it. Because you've... Pardon?
This is Deputy Tóibín.
Sorry, it's just Deputy MacDonald is muttering something at me and I can't hear. But it's a statement of fact that Sinn Féin have opposed every European referendum since we joined the European Union, including the one to join the European Union. That's the truth. Old fogey, young fogey, yes.
Please.